Part 32. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 325. When entering the 5th floor below the ground, there were no more threatening magic machines. Walls made of stone bricks formed a straight path, and burning torches were inserted at regular intervals on the walls. It is not only the only lighting in the underground passage, but also proves that there is oxygen here. As you go down, do you become less vigilant? Most people would have been dealt with on the upper floors a long time ago. We were only saved by an inexplicable earthquake. Neither Charlotte nor Ika knew that the vibrations that caused the ground to break came from the shelling of the ground, so they interpreted it as an earthquake. Let's not talk about it for now. Is Lan Ming on this floor? That's what that person said. I'm not sure. The person Charlotte refers to is the person who helped her get from August to Rosenberg prison. On the way to this level, Charlotte told her the current situation during the break in the battle. I didn't expect that you would actually act like this in order not to bring trouble to your family. This is the suggestion of Her Royal Highness Princess Zimingyila. She is a very powerful planner. It turns out that Lan Ming's sister is this kind of person. Ika has not seen Zimingyila in person until now. Charlotte looked at Ika, who commented so casually, her eyes filled with reproach. Your attitude towards the two princesses is too frivolous. That's because Lan Ming himself said not to talk to her in that respectful manner. I know this, so I didn't say anything more when you called Her Royal Highness Princess Lan Ming by her name. There was suddenly no conversation between the two, and they just continued to move forward cautiously. After turning a corner, the light from the torch became even more dazzling, and there was no way forward. The wall was hollowed out inward to create a separate cell. Lan Mingyila is in this room that is completely isolated from the outside world. Her hands were hung in the air by chains hanging from the roof. The chains crawled across her body like poisonous snakes and were tied to her legs. The previously dazzling dress had become unsightly, and her underwear was vaguely exposed from between the torn pieces of cloth. Image. Your Highness. Charlotte raised the spear and twisted the space of the cell partition, making a hole in the steel partition that allowed two people to enter. The footsteps and voices coming from outside the door made Lan Ming, who almost fainted again, slightly open his eyes. After being locked up in a place like this for a long time, Lan Ming had lost the concept of time. Charlotte, there is a magic circle on this chain. It's probably a cursed iron that can seal magic. You can just unlock it with your hands. Ika and Charlotte put down the half-asleep Lan Ming and let her lean against them. After removing the chains that hindered the flow of magic power, Lan Ming regained some consciousness. Charlotte, Ika, why? Charlotte and I are here to save you. Nonsense. Why, do such a thing? Although it was very difficult for Lan Ming to even speak, seeing the two people covered in dust, he could understand that they did not rescue him through formal methods. Your Highness. If you come to rob the prison now, the Senate can use it as an excuse. What you are trying to do now is not at all like this. Is being locked up in a place like this what you, called Her Royal Highness, should do? Now Lan Ming can only cling to Ika, so weak that even ordinary girls cannot resist. But Ika couldn't take her away by force, and it would be meaningless if she couldn't make her willingly accept the status quo. Before we rescued you, what did you do for yourself? Are you just being locked up here and counting the days? Snapped. This slap came not from Lan Ming, but from Charlotte, who suddenly stood up and glared at Ika. Shut up. Ika, you are so rude to Her Royal Highness the Princess. Stop, Charlotte. Do you know what kind of determination Her Highness the Princess has when she returns to this country? People who don't know anything should not talk nonsense here. This was the first time that Charlotte didn't listen to Lan Ming's words. Her tears fell on the cold stone floor with her falling hands. The tone echoed in the empty dungeon was high and trembling, and Charlotte pursed her lips tightly as if she was swallowing back all the thousands of words of rebuke. Lan Ming was speechless, even she had never seen such a weak side of Xiaoluo. Ika never thought that this night lady, who had never shown weakness, would expose her tears in front of her competitor. There was still burning pain in the place where he was beaten, but Ika couldn't be angry no matter what. I really don't know why Lan Ming was stupid enough to throw herself into a trap, so I have to take her out now to find out. That was a trap, I didn't expect to be brought here. Lan Ming is now in the position of Ika holding him, and it is very difficult to avoid his condescending gaze. She had nowhere to run, but her stubborn attitude never changed. Even if you can rescue me now, what will you do next? I came to save you in the name of the Qin's family. Do you understand what this means? That is. Lan Ming knew that Ika had been rejecting this sudden identity from beginning to end. When we were about to leave August, you came to invite me to be your knight. I should have said this. Maybe one day, I will become an enemy of the empire. At that time, if I were your knight, I would be in all kinds of troubles. Do you remember? Of course I remember. I can understand your determination in this answer, but I absolutely cannot accept it. Lan Ming couldn't hide his unwillingness. Even now, I can't accept it. I accept the responsibility of being your knight, but cannot accept the title. This sentence was also what Ika said when he rejected Lan Ming, and now he said it again in front of Lan Ming. But now you have more troubles than I do, and now we are both enemies of the empire. Therefore, I can legitimately fulfill my responsibilities as a knight. Lan Ming's eyes had already overflowed with tears. Her fragile heart no longer allowed her to rely on anyone's tenderness, which would only bring more disasters. Even if his supporters believe in him now that the radicals are in power, Lan Ming can no longer rely on anyone's power. Therefore, having lost the concept of time and existence in the dark underground cell, loneliness has penetrated her fragile heart. Lan Ming, now I am here to greet you as your knight. I am also an enemy of the empire, so my identity is worth using, right? Ika smiled provocatively at Lan Ming in his arms, but Lan Ming reached out and pushed his chest away. She tried to stand up by herself, but failed. Charlotte quickly supported Her Royal Highness's swaying body from the side. I don't need to use your identity, Lan Ming said to him without allowing Ika to question, and the confident expression returned to this tired face. Without the high heels, Lan Ming looked even smaller than Ika remembered, but there was no sign of weakness in the eyes that looked up at him slightly. It is the duty of a knight to wield a sword to protect me. Ika Chiz, can you bear this honor? The slightly raised corners of his mouth were Lan Ming's small revenge on Ika driven by his pride. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 326. A strong body wearing knight armor stood in front of Ling and Wei 11. Ling had already seen that rough and resolute face twice. For Sanders Dell, the leader of the Iron Lion Knights, his meeting with Ling was limited to August's arena. I didn't expect that my opponent would be a child. Sanders Dell, who felt the aura of the magic suit and found himself in front of the spire alone, thrust the huge sword full of presents into the ground. Uncle, are you alone? Other knights of the Iron Lion Knights have entered the prison underground to search for your companions. How about it, Ling Heinz? I have no interest in bullying children. If you can put down your weapons and go with me, the question is simple. It can be solved. In the past world, the man in front of Ling left himself and Ika unable to fight back with his bare hands. In August's arena, Ika defeated him by using the ability of mechanical alchemy and the click-to-end rule. Ling stood in front of Wei 11 with a knife, her eyes fixed on the man standing still in front of her, and asked Wei 11 in a low voice. Wei 11, can you feel where Ika and the others are? Vaguely. Ika and Charlotte are deep underground, and the PDA has no signal. Wei 11 and Ika concluded a magic costume contract. She had said before that she could sense the location of her master. You go to Ika first and tell him the current situation. I will figure out a solution here. But don't waste time, let's go. Woo. Wei 11's whole body trembled when Ling suddenly shouted loudly, and she could only run in the opposite direction with her legs that had not rested since returning to the ground. Sanders Dell just put his hands in his hands and watched Wei 11 run away from Ling's back, with no intention of pursuing her. Uncle, don't you have to chase her? It seems that you are not going to let me go. Sanders Dell pulled out the giant sword that was inserted into the ground and pointed it at Ling, who pulled away the two small swords. As long as I treat you as a hostage, your companions will gather here. This is really a despicable approach. You are only a child and have not seen anything truly despicable. Ling could feel sweat breaking out in the palm of her hand holding the handle of the knife. It was impossible not to be nervous. The opponent he had not defeated in the past 2 times, and now he has raised the magic equipment, the hope of victory is very slim. Even so, I can't give in now. Aika's newly dislocated arm had just been reattached. The princess hug was too forced for him now, so he carried Lan Ming, who was unable to walk, on his back. Can we return to the ground in this direction? It seems to be the same road as when I came here. The terrain here has changed now. Anyway, you just need to follow me. Charlotte walked in front of Aika holding the scarlet blade spiral. The road blocked by falling rocks could be easily cleared by waving her spear. Can your magical equipment ability change space? The 2 spear tips of the scarlet blade spiral can open and close space cracks respectively. Do you know what a space crack is? Is it like opening a hole in the air? Aika remembered that when Wei 11 described how she left the Holy See, she also mentioned words like space cracks. Charlotte sighed, she was obviously not satisfied with Aika's understanding. The space we are in now can be seen as continuous, so if I throw a stone at you here, the stone will hit you. Charlotte explained while opening a new path from the dead end caused by countless falling rocks. If you open a gap in the continuous space, it is equivalent to creating an endless fork in the straight line, and the things that exist at that location will disappear. Did you get sucked in? Well, if the pebble thrown at you doesn't hit the ground, it will keep flying in an endless direction. Imagine it a little better. As for you, SHH, someone is coming. In such a narrow road, they have nowhere to hide. The oncoming Imperial Knights immediately spotted Aika and Charlotte, but neither could see each other's faces clearly in the dim passage. There's someone here. The 3rd princess is also here. They should be the infiltrators of the prison. Be careful not to hurt the 3rd princess. The 3 Imperial Knights summoned weapons, namely daggers, long whips and knight's spears, which are all weapons that can exert the greatest power in narrow passages. Aika, all their weapons are magic weapons. Don't fight them directly. Even if you say so, we have no way out. If you go back along the original path, you will end up in the dead end of the deepest part of the prison. This is a one-way street. Then I'll fight them. Idiot, don't you want to protect your family? They haven't recognized you yet. If you take out your magic costume, you will be exposed immediately. But you can't even defeat that magic machine. Your Highness the princess needs someone to protect you now. Lend this to me. Aika pulled the dagger hanging from Charlotte's skirt and pushed Lan Ming, who was sleeping on his back, to her. Take Lan Ming to a safe place. Hey, that kind of weapon. Aika didn't listen to Charlotte's advice and rushed out from the back of the rock. He used the pistol in his left hand to shape the magic power into the shape of a blade, and held Charlotte's dagger in his right hand. Now I can only try to imitate Senior Xiao's fighting style. The long whip shining with purple light bounced on the rock wall and stabbed Aika. He quickly turned sideways from the path of the whip, and the boulder hidden behind him was shattered into pieces. Aika quickly turned around. Fortunately, Xiaoluo and Lan Ming were no longer there. When he shifted his attention for a moment, the knight's short sword had already stabbed his arm. Aika quickly blocked the knife with his pistol, but the knight changed the direction of the blade by slightly twisting the handle. Ika raised her head to avoid the blade piercing her jaw, and then received a sharp kick in the abdomen. Cough. You can tell the color of the liquid you spit out without opening your eyes. His body was kicked backwards by an inexplicable powerful force and hit some kind of flexible net. What's this? Ika tried to move her arms, but her hands and feet were unable to move as if they were stuck to this net. This is the huge spider web that the long whip spun between the passages while crushing the boulders. The long whip that shimmered with a coquettish purple light was supported by rose-like thorns, and the pain of piercing the skin was not transmitted to Ika's brain until a few seconds later. The last knight had already raised his knight's spear and bent down to gather strength. Are these people monsters? There was no flaw in the tacit understanding, and their actions seemed to have been planned in advance, making Ika lose the ability to fight back in a few seconds. Eyes of fiery flame still did not respond to Ika's call. Only the two guns can be used, but if the arms cannot move, it is equivalent to scrap metal. The light of 4 kinds of magic flashed in the dim passage, and the light of the knight's spear drew a bright trajectory in the air. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 327. Under the spire, which had been spared from being bombarded by the aviation magic ship, the situation on the ground was as miserable as if it had been bombarded. The soil sunk deeply into the ground, layers of stone slabs were lifted up like fish scales, and the raging magic dug deep channels in the soil. The topography of this land has been changed. Ling held a long sword with flames wrapped around the blade, and faced off against Sanders Dell, who held the hilt of the giant sword with both hands. A red wound was exposed under the girl's clothes. Under the scratched black knee-high socks, blood similar to the color of the cloth flowed out of the wound. Although Sanders Dell was also slightly injured, it was clear who was in the upper hand compared to Ling, who had difficulty breathing. I thought so before when I was in August. You are an amazing girl. Even the knights in the knights may not be as good as you. Why do you still insist on making such a wrong move? In your eyes, are what we did wrong? I don't know what serious crimes the third princess has committed, and I don't care. In any case, the prison robbery is too much. I also think this approach is too much, but there seems to be no other way except this. Blazing Red Lotus. Don't even think about it. Sanders Dell inserted the giant sword into the ground, and a sharp thorn came out from Ling's feet, which was a few meters away, and penetrated Ling's thigh. The sharp pain prevented the magic power of the light flame sword from condensing, so she could only grit her teeth and pull out the sharp thorn. Warm blood flowed from the penetrating wound, and the leg lost its strength and fell to the ground, but Ling still used the long knife to support his body and did not fall down. Ling Heinz, I said before that I don't like bullying children. But now I am facing an enemy who is no less powerful than a knight. I can only use all my strength to defeat you. Sanders Dell did not pull out the giant sword from the ground, but instead placed his hand on the upright hilt. The family crest of the Dell family appears between the hilt, which is also the source of the magic power of this magic sword. The giant image is made. As the resolute roar rang out, the giant earth puppet giant stood on the ground. This is the ability of that magic weapon, the ability to freely manipulate the earth. If the giant statue in front of him swung his fist, the sword in his hand would be easily shattered. Ha! Ling, who was facing a desperate situation, laughed at himself. If I don't take the initiative to ask you for help, you will never help me. The giant clay idol in front of Ling disappeared, and the land turned into a mess and disappeared. What appeared in front of Ling was the bright moon in the night sky. A small ancient pavilion stood on the sparkling lake. A curved bridge connected the ancient pavilion to the lake shore. Ling was not confused by the sudden change of scenery. She walked onto the curved bridge leading to the ancient pavilion in the middle of the lake as if she already knew this place. It is indeed not the first time for Ling to come here. When she suffered an unknown attack and fell into a coma, her consciousness was already wandering in this beautiful scenery. But this time, she was no longer the only one in the ancient pavilion. The moonlight is so beautiful. Yes. A woman wearing a pure white hakama dress and a blue hakama skirt with plum blossoms kneels and sits in front of a low table in the ancient pavilion. On the table are jade white wine bottles and wine cups. Her straight black hair was very suitable in such a night, and the way she raised her sleeves to pour wine was as reserved as Yamato Nades Hiko. Would you like a drink too? Casual. This was not reality, so Ling did not refuse. She knew that the woman in front of her was the one she was looking for, and she was not human. Ling picked up the wine cup she pushed in front of him and drank a thin layer of wine with his eyes closed. Ling, who was trying wine for the first time, was also fascinated by the sweet but slightly spicy taste, but now Ling had no intention of drinking sake and singing to the moon. Light flame sword, I need your help, please lend me your power. Have you finally accepted your weakness? The woman known as the Light Flame Sword did not directly respond to Ling's request. Humph, I have to accept it? I have never won in anything. No matter whether I hate people or people I like, I have never defeated them. Does it have to be a win? Huang Yanjian smiled and drank the sake, as if the battle in the outside world had nothing to do with her. Of course I can't lose. If it were the original situation, I should have said this, but now I feel like it doesn't matter what happens. I can't tell your sincerity from these words. The Guanjun sword once again filled Ling's wine cup with sake. The sake reflected the moonlight, just like the phosphorescence on the surface of the lake. I just want to do what I like now. It's not a matter of winning or not, as long as I have worked hard in the end. But now, I haven't even tried hard. Aren't you already working very hard? Even that knight said you are an amazing girl. Are you mocking me? Only I know my own weakness best. Isn't that what you want to hear me say? Ling drank the sake in the glass again. Surprisingly, he didn't feel drunk yet. Perhaps this is how it is set up in this space. What you said makes me look like a villain. Isn't it? He used my body to say incomprehensible words to him, and as a result, he forced me into desperation. If I don't help you, can you tell him yourself? I admit that. Oh. Guanjianjian held up the wine cup and showed an interesting smile to Ling, who calmly responded to him. So now I'm here to ask you a favor. Can't I make you admit it now? I have already recognized you, so you don't need to come here to see me. You are just like the little girl from the Qin's family, you just didn't admit yourself, but I was rejected by you. The magic costume and the master are one and the same, but you have never thought of borrowing my power, right? Guanjun Sword's words were like a blow to Ling's heart. I only thought about how to win, and that was only from my own point of view, and I didn't subconsciously borrow power from anyone. Even though he was wielding the light flame sword, Ling still attributed the cause and effect of winning or losing to his own strength. Ling put down the wine cup in his hand, the slightly spicy irritation of the sake still lingering in his throat. Is that so? Being competitive is a good thing, but it's also good to look around. Guan Yanjian stopped filling Ling's wine cup, and Ling also put down the wine cup, leaving only the smooth wall reflecting the moonlight. I'm sorry, there is still someone waiting for me. That Uncle Knight. It's not him. I don't want to waste my time on him anymore. He. Ling stood up and left the table, walking down the curved bridge. Then the evening wind blew away all the scenery behind him. The moonlight was still there, but it was covered with misty dust and no longer so bright. Under the moonlight, only a dark outline was left of the giant clay idol, which raised its fist to block the moonlight. Ling returned to reality and held the handle of the long knife tightly. The four-color magical light lit up the gorgeous lines on the blade, jumping as if it were alive. Light flame sword elemental control. The moment the scene in front of her returned to the battlefield, she and the light flame sword were connected again. Yes, that's it. The raging magic storm swept up flying sand and rocks, and the earth seemed to be shaking along with it. The nearly 2-meter-long knife did not waver in his hand, as if another hand was holding the handle of the knife with him. The four-color light condensed on the blade, igniting brilliant colors under the moonlight, mixed and compressed. The original four elemental magic, light, ice, fire, and darkness, the sword of light and flame controls the unsculpted primitive power. Golden particles floated around Ling, adding to the magic power of the fusion of the four elements, acting like a catalyst to stabilize the rioting magic power. The giant earthen statue dully smashed down the stone fist with the sound of breaking the wind. Ling stood proudly with his sword and swung his sword towards the oppressive stone fist. Fantasy star falling glory. Rosenberg lit the most magnificent magic beam of light on this silent night. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 328. The Phosphorus Birdcage. Ika never thought that Way 11's voice could reach such a distance. The long whip that bound his hands and feet, the knight's spear that charged forward with unstoppable momentum, and the pale magic barrier that instantly unfolded flashed before Ika's eyes. This is not a dark passage made of gravel. It is sunny at this time. The cherry blossom trees are in full bloom, and the fallen cherry blossoms are blown up in the breeze mixed with the fragrance of flowers. Why are you here? Under the falling cherry blossoms, the girl holding a red paper umbrella turned slightly. The soft pink hair is tied into equally soft twin tails. Under the flat bangs are emotionless eyes, and the crimson kimono wraps her slender body. Her question seemed surprised, but the lack of cadence in her tone gave away no hint of surprise. I brought brother Ika here. Ika and the nameless girl are not the only ones in this bizarre space. Way 11 also came here at some unknown time, and she was standing behind Ika. Way 11, what exactly is this? Brother Ika, she is the Eye of Fiery Flame. Eye of Fiery Flame, my magic outfit. The girl holding a red paper umbrella just looked at Ika quietly in front of her and did not confirm his guess. It was Way 11 who stepped forward in place of Ika, who had not yet understood the situation. She walked directly between Ika and the fiery eyes. Brother Ika has never rejected you, why can't I lend you your power? Because my master has signed a contract with you. The tone in which she said the sentence, neither Ika nor Way 11 could tell what kind of emotion was contained in the words. Is it because he signed a new contract with Way 11 without authorization, which caused the fiery eyes to be dissatisfied? Ika wasn't sure what she meant. The girl known as the Eyes of Fiery Eyes moved her emotionless eyes away from Way 11 and looked back at the man who was her master. Eye of Fiery Flame. Ika confirmed again. This time, the girl in front of him responded to his words and nodded slightly. Is it because I signed a contract with Way 11 that you can't lend me your power? She nodded slightly again. Could it be that? Ika wasn't sure if it was because of this reason. It's because I did it without your consent. Ika hadn't finished speaking yet, but this time she shook her head. You don't need my permission. This sentence was said not while looking at Ika, but at Way 11. Her reaction was limited to nodding, shaking her head and moving her eyes, making the conversation a bit stiff. But Ika could only continue this stiff conversation. Why is that? Because my magic is not enough to use your power. My name is Hitomi. The conversation is completely unavailable. Human beings do not have enough mental strength to maintain two magic costumes, and their spirits will collapse. This time the surprised person was Way 11, I didn't know it would turn out like this. Ika also understood the simple and easy to understand explanation of fiery eyes. Although the ability of the magic equipment does not require the holder's magic power to use it, Maintaining the ability of the magic equipment requires strong mental power. That's why Ika was able to use mechanical alchemy even though his magic power was insufficient, but he had never used the ability of magic equipment after signing a contract with Way 11. The contract between me and Brother Ika is different from yours. I don't need Brother Ika to maintain my abilities. No difference, you are already connected to my master. If you break, my master will be hurt in the same way. Why is this happening? Way 11 lost her cool after being explained by the fiery eyes. I never knew it would be like this. The eyes of fiery eyes left Way 11, who was talking to herself again, and looked at Ika silently again. She didn't say anything more, and her eyes showed no interest in the two of them, and she didn't know if she was confirming with Ika. Ika held Way 11's shoulders from behind, causing her to turn her head in panic, tears overflowing from her big eyes. Brother Ika, what should I do? I didn't know it would turn out like this. Way 11, you are not wrong. He helped Way 11 raise her head and said to Fierce Flame Tong, who didn't know what she was thinking, "Thank you, Tong." The girl in the crimson kimono nodded silently. "But now I really need your power. The power gap between me and the enemy is too big." He raised Way 11's face again. Way 11's power is also indispensable. Mechanical alchemy cannot be used in that kind of place, it must be within the field. He's going to die. Just a quick fight is enough. You won't die. In this unknown space, Ika can not only feel the familiar magic power of the fiery eyes, but also feel the connection between herself and Way 11. Ika secretly believes that she can control their power, because at this moment they are not fighting each other, but are in harmony with each other in their own bodies. So, trust me, Hitomi. The eyes under the long eyelashes seemed lifeless, but she was indeed observing Ika's words. Falling cherry blossom slipped from the red paper umbrella or floated past her eyes. Ika let go of Way 11's shoulder and walked past her. He walked towards the girl whom he had met for the first time and felt no strangeness at all. Luoluo, who returned to the ground alone, saw the light beam slanting into the night sky from the ground, and she recognized it as the silver magic power of the fiery eyes. When she panted and found the four people from the scorched earth battlefield, her legs also lost strength and she knelt on the ground. The only people still standing there were Charlotte and another unknown girl. Lanming and Way 11, with their eyes closed, were leaning on the ruins, and the two of them were working together to remove Ika from the passage opened by mechanical alchemy. Lift it out. The castle was reduced to ruins. The spire that served as a landmark when everyone dispersed was no longer visible, and Ling could not be found anywhere nearby. Miss Luoluo. Charlotte found Luoluo lying on the ground and called her name loudly. The girl I had never seen before also came over after settling Ika. "I'm sorry, I wasn't of much help." Ika and Miss Wixie defeated 3 knights with magic costumes. Now I think there is no danger to their lives. Where's Sister Ling? When I came here again, I saw 2 magic light pillars. The second one was Mr. Kin's, and the first one must be Mr. Heinz. This is Your Excellency Anja, the maid of Her Royal Highness the 4th Princess. She also drove that car. Everyone, the Imperial Army will be back soon. There's no time to explain, so get in the car. After placing the unconscious man and Luoluo in the back seat, Anja turned the steering wheel and drove the motorcycle towards the place where she saw the magic light beam. Weakly leaning on the ruins, Ling still retained consciousness, but she could only stand up with the help of Luoluo and Anja. "How are you going to escape now? Miss Anja, please take us to the airport." "I don't agree with going to that kind of place now. The Senate will never let go of the opportunity to control the airport." "Don't worry, Miss Charlotte." Luoluo stared at the road in front of him. "It should be safe now." "Since Miss Luoluo believes, Sir Anja, just go to the airport as Miss Luoluo said." "I see." The motorcycle was speeding on the night road, and Anja's driving skills had been professionally practiced. During this time, Luoluo strengthened his hesitation before leaving the underground. Even if I can't accept it emotionally, I now have the ability to reverse this mood. The forced reality and the unreachable ideal made her determined to use her own power to save her favorite family. The sky has turned white, and it is impossible to return to Shimizuki Academy before dawn. The airport was full of unconscious Imperial soldiers. Neither Charlotte nor Anja knew who had extended a helping hand, and they did not confirm it with Luoluo. The three girls carried the four injured people onto the unmanned airship. Although there was no permission, this sin is no longer worth mentioning. Among them, only Charlotte, a knight of the guard, had experience in flying an airship, so she stayed in the cab. "Miss Anja, I'll bring you water for everyone." "Excuse me, Miss Luoluo." Anja also had to use the limited conditions on the airship to provide emergency treatment to the four injured people. The airship's hatch slowly closed. They must leave Rosenberg Airport immediately. The Imperial Army does not know when they will come back. While paying attention to the instruments in the cab, Charlotte also paid attention to the situation outside the airship through the monitor on the airship. Suddenly, someone who shouldn't be there appears in the picture captured by the monitor. Miss Luoluo. That was Luoluo, who was supposed to be taking care of them with Ng in the cabin. There were two other people beside her. It was a tall man wearing a white windbreaker and a petite girl in a dark evening dress. Just as Charlotte was about to land the airship, the monitor simultaneously showed the approach of the aviation magic fleet in the distance. "It is impossible to land now, otherwise no one will be able to escape from here." Charlotte could only bear the guilt alone, driving the airship to speed up to Frost Moon Academy, where the Bis Empire could not take direct action. Luoluo, who was between the two of them, finally looked back at the airship that was gradually rising into the sky. It was full of sadness and reluctance. Her lips parted slightly, saying a silent farewell to the airship that was gradually moving away. "Bye now." Then, with her back to the airship again, she and the other two people started to form a complex magic circle. The figures of the three people disappeared in the morning light with the radiance of magic power. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 329. Chapter 329. At the usual postscript time, I am the guest Muse Hiking. Host. I just direct and act, no need for a host. I don't know why the host who has become motionless now is called XXXX. XXXX emotional and high-spirited. Good evening, this is the interview column of Muse Hiking, the author of the light novel Endless Silver City, who calls himself Mew Mew's home-based teacher. Let us follow the camera lens into the inner world of teacher Moo Moo. Mew. Sorry, I have a program I want to watch at 4 o'clock. Can you get to the point a little faster? Laugh. XXXX, inexplicable. But it's night now. Does teacher Moo Moo mean 4 in the morning? Mew. Just treat it like that. Laugh. XXXX emotional and high-spirited. Yes, then let's get straight to the point. After reading this, many readers still don't understand why teacher Mew Mew chose the title Endless Silver City for her work. Is it just to create an unclear and powerful artistic conception? Mew. What is 1000-7? Laugh. XXXX, inexplicable. It's 993. Mew. Speaking of why this book title was decided, it should be said that it is related to the ability of the male protagonist. Aika's magical equipment Fire Eyes, which means Hitomi-chan's ability is mechanical alchemy, can infinitely create machines in an empty space, contrary to the truth of equivalent substitution. This is the first and last word in the book's title. The origin of the last two words. The magical color of mechanical alchemy is silver, and I personally like silver very much, so the title of this work was decided. XXXX, embarrassing. So it turns out that the title that will leave the first impression on readers was not decided at once. Mew. Your eyebrows are illegal in my world. Laugh. XXXX, inexplicable. I'm really sorry, but this has nothing to do with the current show, right, teacher Mumu? Mew. Laugh. XXXX emotional and high-spirited. So, that's it for today's interview. Endless City of Silver. Mew. The last word is machine instead of city. You really worked hard to liven up the atmosphere, laughs. XXXX, embarrassing. That's really embarrassing, after all. Mew. Does that make it easy to read? Actually, I know, laughs. Mew. By the way, after the interview, do you want to come to my room? I live alone and the room is quite big, laughs. Next is the customary time to thank you. I would like to thank the artist Mr. Kombucha for meeting my arbitrary requests for multi-frame color illustrations and the editor-in-chief Shiziza for her daily care. Of course, the most important thing is all the readers who have been with me until here. Hey, is the above interview transcript fabricated? Please imagine it yourself, laughs. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 331. The body is restrained by the spider web woven by the long whip, just like every sharp thorn on the rose vine's long whip is endlessly absorbing Ika's magic power and vitality. Just when the sharp edge of the knight's spear was about to penetrate this defenseless body, it was suddenly blocked by a pale magic barrier. When this knight's spear thrusts in a straight line, the attack power will be doubled, and the defensive magic of any country's magician can be broken through. Therefore, when the thrust encountered great resistance, the Imperial Knight holding the gun still did not regard this magic barrier as an obstacle. The triangular tip of the knight's spear rubbed against the pale magic barrier to create dazzling particle sparks. However, silver-white magic power that was different from the light of particle sparks penetrated into it. This is. Noticing the foreign magic mixed in around him, the Imperial Knight quickly turned the tip of his spear and instinctively fired the second shot. With a clang explosion, the huge knight's spear was hit by a weapon of the same mass. The second impact of magic burst out with even more dazzling light in the dim earth and stone passage. Team leader, his restraints are lifted. The female knight withdrew the long whip that formed the spider web, and one end of the long whip seemed to have been burned, leaving only a blackened stump. The long whip, like a thorny purple rose branch, squirmed and regenerated as if it were alive. Another knight held his dagger horizontally in front of him. The knight's spear was knocked away by the heavy force, and the tip of the spear deviated far from the expected target. In such a narrow earth and stone passage, although this weapon can exert its maximum power, it is also subject to many limitations. The inability to adjust the offense quickly is one of them. Tisk, switch formation. Learn. The spear knight retreated amid the sparks of magic, and the short sword knight immediately filled the gap. This short sword can leave wounds on the opponent that cannot be healed and will gradually expand over time. It is very cruel in nature. This is a weapon that allows the enemy to retreat without a fight after continuously accumulating damage, but it is meaningless without leaving wounds on the opponent's body. The positioning is complete, Miss Hitomi. The performance is pretty good. When the dazzling magic light dissipated, silver-white converging magic power shot out from the place. In order to adapt to the nature of his magical equipment, the Dagger Knight has the most outstanding mobility among the three knights. He was planning to leave incurable wounds before Ika resumed his activities, but he was ultimately a step slower than Wei 11. The restrained magic shots poured into the dim earth and stone passage like a flood, without causing the unstable earth and stone structure to collapse. The three Imperial Knights were caught off guard by the torrent of silver-white magic. The continuous output bombardment lasted for several seconds before further condensing and dissipating. In front of the rubble where the original condition could no longer be seen, Aika, surrounded by silver and pure white magic power, stood proudly. The right arm stretched straight forward is no longer holding the pistol, and the huge long-barreled gun body extends from the elbow. The front section of the silver-white cannon body and the pure white three-layer magic array dissipated step by step. She had completed the task of positioning and restraining it. Aika repelled the attack by wielding a cannon body that was as good as a knight's spear. The physical burden brought by the magic equipment will not affect the holder, so the seemingly heavy barrel is not an unbearable load for Aika. But he still gritted his teeth and lowered his arms, using the barrel as a crutch to support his body. Brother Aika. Coming soon. On the other hand, the shelling just now had only temporarily pushed back the three Imperial Knights. The Spear Knight used the Knight's Spear to withstand most of the impact at the critical moment, and the female knight also used her long whip to form a spider web barrier to protect herself and the short sword knight. But Brother Aika's body. I can still hold on. Hitomi, give me the pistol, and leave it to Way 11 for defense. In fact, now Aika feels that her head is swollen and painful, and her body seems not to be her own. Way 11's body had disappeared when he noticed it, and her existence resided in Aika's consciousness just like Hitomi. Therefore, his current physical condition cannot be hidden from them, and a quick solution is the key. The familiar pistol appeared in Aika's left hand, while his right hand still held the silver barrel. The Kin's family's mechanical alchemy, let us see it. The Spear Knight raised his knight's spear again, and pointed the triangular spear tip at Aika. He arched his waist and made a declaration of thrusting with all his strength. Then the figure of the short sword knight flashed and completely disappeared from the place. The next second, his figure holding a short sword flashed into the suddenly closing distance. The gleaming dagger swung down towards Aika's right shoulder, and Aika blocked the attack with his left arm holding the gun. At the same time, he pointed the muzzle of the gun at the dagger knight's body and pulled the trigger. But the figure of the short sword knight disappeared again. Aika's bullet only hit the wall of the earth and stone passage, and the gravel collapsed. The spear tip of the Spear Knight has accumulated enough magic power in the thrust distance. Way 11, protect Tong. The pure white magic power that was already covering the silver-white cannon immediately became intense. Aika waved the long-barreled cannon body that was integrated with his right arm, trying to use the huge cannon body to resist the thrust of the knight's spear. But this time Aika's attack did not gain an advantage. The power of the knight's spear lifted Aika's barrel high. The thrust of the knight's spear was different from before. Most of the magic power had been consumed when fighting against Kang Phosphorus's birdcage. The cannon body was blown away by the knight's spear, and Aika's body was wide open, completely exposed to the thrust trajectory of the knight's spear. At the critical moment, Aika moved his body to evade, and the tip of the triangular spear grazed his abdomen and stabbed him. But what splashed out was not Aika's blood, but pure white magic debris. Woo! Way 11, are you okay? I'm sorry, I can only do this now. Way 11 apologized in Aika's consciousness, and the defense that was shattered by the thrust was rebuilt. After barely avoiding the Spear Knight's thrust, Aika's left arm suddenly suffered a heavy blow. Probably when his attention was diverted by the Spear Knight's attack, the figure of the short sword knight was already so close. The short knife that could leave wounds that would never heal failed to break through Way 11's defense, but it also shattered the pure magic barrier. At the same time, the long whip that popped up like a poisonous snake wrapped around Aika's left arm, and the thorns on the long whip continued to consume the remaining magic barrier. The short sword knight was about to swing the short sword again, leaving Aika with heavy damage before Way 11's defense could be reorganized. Mechanical alchemy, Predator. The crossfire of 6 floating cannons caught up in time, destroying the long whip on his wrist, and forced the short sword knight to retreat without swinging a second sword. Don't force yourself, you're already doing a great job. Woo! The same goes for Hitomi. I feel more skilled than before, and my cooperation is much better. Certainly. Even so, Ika is still only restrained by the 3 knights. The will war goes against Ika. The longer the time drags on, the heavier the load will be on Ika to use 2 magic outfits at the same time. Now, the proof is that his reaction speed has dropped a lot, otherwise he shouldn't be taken advantage of by the short sword knight. If the entire earth and stone passage is destroyed, it can probably stop the Imperial Knights, but it will also lose its retreat. Way 11, use the Kang Phosphorus Birdcage on us. Hitomi, use all your magic power on the attack. I understand, but what to do? I don't agree with it. This is a risky behavior with unpredictable results. I believe in Way 11, and I believe in you. In just a few seconds of explanation, the Imperial Knights had already regrouped. Although she remained silent in response to Ika's words, Hitomi still responded to his needs. Dozens of prismatic machines that are incompatible with the earth and stone passage are lined up on 4 extension lines up, down, left, and right, and 3 mechanical claws are firmly inserted into the stone wall. What's this? That guy shouldn't be, careful. This is a suicide attack. The battle-hardened spear knight immediately understood Ika's approach. Small machines were spread throughout the earth and stone passage, and both the Imperial Knights and Ika himself were within coverage. Mechanical alchemy Tungu's electric field. When the pale magic barrier unfolded again, the dim earth and stone passage was illuminated by silvery white arcs as bright as day. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 332. After receiving Ika's text message informing everyone to return to the ground to rendezvous, Luoluo walked step by step along the stone brick passage while holding on to the ruins. A large amount of rubble produced when the prison collapsed lay underfoot, and it felt uneven when stepping on it. Luoluo did not fall into the depths, so he did not suffer serious injuries, and the small wounds have been healed under the influence of healing magic. Only at such times can healing magic work a little bit. If you go against Ika's will and join him deep down, the healing magic will be more effective. But in the end, Luoluo did not choose to do this. She tried hard to show the meaning of her existence and listen to her brother. She chose the latter. She knows that in the eyes of everyone, she is the so-called good girl. This lie was only recently discovered by Ika. The exhaustion, rebelliousness, unwillingness, and jealousy in my heart are unrelated but equally dark and negative emotions. Only I know it best. Ling's disguise is self-protection, Way 11's cover-up is a sign of purity, but what about herself? Luoluo couldn't understand, and didn't want to. Healing magic can only treat injuries. The pharmacy department also has methods for preparing medicines to relieve fatigue, but it is of no use in a place like this. Luoluo was already very tired. But this is not a sign of weakness, nor does it mean comparing yourself to other girls. The unlit stone brick passage could not even see clearly underfoot. Luoluo was tripped by the stones under his feet several times, but still did not fall. I have to go back. This is the only belief that supports Lolo. She had already convinced herself this way when she boarded the aviation-guided ship bound for the imperial capital. Everyone must go back together. This is the end. After helping Her Royal Highness prove her innocence, the dispute can be stopped. Even if you know that this is just self-deception, if you don't believe it, the future will be as dark as what you see before you. In addition to the rustling of gravel under his feet, different sounds echoed in the stone brick passage. Noticing this, Luoluo stopped, but the small voice did not stop. In the darkness, a beam of light passed by. This is not the so-called ray of hope. Because this beam of light scratched Luoluo's calf, blood whose color could not be distinguished in the dark flowed from the wound. Her right leg lost strength, and the sharp pain also occupied her mind. Luoluo slid against the wall dejectedly. He couldn't see anything in front of him, only the constant rustling in his ears told him that he was surrounded by something. It was probably the kind of self-disciplined machine that I met on the upper floors. It was impossible for me to escape alone, let alone with an injured leg. Lugo Lugo bit her lip and never screamed out because of the pain, or in other words, she didn't even have the strength to whine. If you use light magic now, you can know the surrounding situation, but after knowing it, you will only fall into even more fear. You are really too tired, I really want to sleep now. If you close your eyes here, will you never wake up again? I have to go back. However, now Lugo Lugo can only do this kind of dissociated thinking. Lugo Lugo closed his eyes, and his consciousness gradually became blurred. Just when she was about to fall into a deep sleep, there was a violent vibration on the wall she was leaning on, which immediately pulled Lugo Lugo's consciousness back from the depths. She opened her eyes slightly, and the dazzling magic light shone in front of her eyes. Hundreds of flaming red arrows were inserted into the ground, and the bright red flames flickered like flames, lighting up the entire space. The densely packed autonomous machinery appeared in prototype form under this brightness, but they remained prototype-like for only a few seconds. In the space in front of Lugo Lugo, the steel self-discipline machinery turned into a pool of molten iron in the magic circle depicted by the arrows. There is no doubt that the magic circle is extremely hot. This heat did not leak to the outside world. Lugo Lugo did not feel it at all and could only imagine it with visual confidence. Who is it? Deliberately ignoring the strange scene in front of him, Lugo Lugo tried his best to turn his head and look for someone to lend a helping hand. Miss Lugo Lugo, are we too late? Where the flames flicker, the white trench coat looks particularly abrupt in this space. The girl wearing a black dress beside him was looking sideways at the side while holding a long bow full of mechanical feeling. The scene in front of me must have been created by her hand. The sleepiness caused by fatigue and blood loss was instantly swept away. Nemesis Society. Lugo Lugo can no longer remember the names of these two people, but he knows their identities clearly. Can Miss Lugo Lugo use healing magic? Please concentrate on healing. We will act as your temporary guards during this period. The man in white didn't seem to have any intention of threatening Lugo Lugo. He stood still and didn't move. The indifferent-looking girl just put away her long bow, took down the bear doll lying on her shoulder, and held it in her hand. Why, Lugo Lugo didn't ask like this. She kept this question in her heart and began to concentrate on treating the wound on her calf. Now, Lolo has no choice but to rely on, use them. During this period of time, the man in white did as he said, neither speaking nor walking away. A few minutes later, Lugo Lugo's wound had completely healed, but the dizziness caused by blood loss was a symptom that the healing magic could not alleviate. Lugo Lugo stood up holding onto the wall, at least he couldn't continue to show weakness in front of them. The man in white also noticed that Lugo Lugo had finished treatment. It's so powerful, healing magic. It is said that there are only a few magicians in the whole continent who can use healing magic, and there are no such talents in the association. Will, you leaked the secret. Sorry, a little emotion would be too much. The two people in front of Lugo Lugo seemed to be talking to themselves like crosstalk. The man in white adjusted his windbreaker and looked at Lugo Lugo again. Miss Lugo Lugo, you probably want to know why we are here, right? Lugo Lugo didn't dare to speak casually, but confronted the two people vigilantly, thinking about ways to escape. There is no chance of winning in a fight. If you use absolute royal power to control them and let you escape, you don't know if the other party has a way to deal with it. As for the latter method, Lugo Lugo still cannot accept the ability to control people's hearts at will, even if the opponent is his enemy. I'm here to re-invite Miss Lugo Lugo. I think by now, Miss Lugo Lugo should be able to see the world clearly, right? I do not understand, what do you mean? Don't you really want to change this world? This world will only bring pain to your beloved family members. Lugo Lugo held her breath. She did not expect that the thoughts that had been hidden in her heart would come out from other people's mouths. Even if the third princess is rescued now, Can we really have a peaceful reunion? This is just a prelude. The man in white opened his hands and spoke enthusiastically, solving the problems that Lugo was worried about dozens of minutes ago. Lugo felt that it was getting harder and harder to breathe, as if all the guilt was weighing on his shoulders. If the source of evil is not eradicated, things like this will happen one after another. The man in white seemed to be talking about something that had nothing to do with him, with a fake smile on his face. Even so, his accusations sounded to Lugo as going straight to the core. There will be a better way, a way where no one will get hurt? For the first time, Lugo felt that what he said was so lacking in confidence and confidence. Maybe the voice was too low and only you could hear it? So in this year, has Miss Lugo found a better way? Our goal is to eliminate the source of evil and make unequal treatment no longer exist in this world. Our goals and yours should have the same interests, right? There is no way there can be a completely fair world, that kind of thing won't exist. The world I'm talking about is just a personal world. Isn't this what Miss Lugo needs? Lugo can understand the true meaning of this world without any explanation from the man in white. Moreover, what he used to lure himself into the bait was not a completely fair world, but a simpler and more direct reason. So, it doesn't matter if it's just a relationship of mutual use. We hope Miss Lugo can join us. Do you need my healing magic? Healing magic is of course also a rare ability, but what we are more concerned about is the same situation of our families. The man in white has never mentioned his magical ability, and she also believes that the Nemesis Society cannot know about his hidden abilities. If I join the association, will you give up on my brother? Ikachiz just needs to maintain this momentum. That man didn't see the world clearly after all, but you are different from him. Will, it's time. Then, let's go to the airport to clean up the area first. Miss Lugo, if you need anything, come to the airport. A transfer magic circle appeared at the feet of the two of them. The man in white bowed slightly to greet Lugo in the faint light, and then disappeared from the stone passage. After the magic light disappeared, the stone brick passage fell into darkness again. Lugo hesitated for a while, then turned around and continued to look for a way back to the ground along the direction of the stone brick passage. The ball of light summoned by light magic floated up and down around her, and the misty light swayed in the darkness, drifting away as the lonely figure. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 333. The Battle of Rosenberg took place in the late evening and early morning hours, but is still widely known. The bombardment of Rosenberg prison by the aviation-guided ship disturbed the dreams of the town residents, and then a large number of Imperial soldiers sent to Rosenberg also hinted at the disturbance. Charlotte piloted the civilian airship left by the Nemesis Society at the airport to leave the BIS Empire. A few hours later, he was pursued by the Imperial Air Magic Fleet. It was initially a warning of shelling without warning, and there was no intention to destroy unarmed civilian airships on the spot. Your Excellency Izine, how is the situation? There is no special signal detection device on the civilian airships, so we can only know the approximate number. It seems that it is a temporary fleet of small aviation magic ships that can catch up with us so quickly. Is this airship's maximum speed now? There is no way to go faster. If we increase the engine power, we may not be able to survive Shimizuki Academy. From Rosenberg on the border of the BIS Empire to Shimizuki Academy in the neutral area, it would conservatively take a full day based on the average speed of a civilian airship. Fortunately, it was a rainy day today and the sky did not clear up until the morning. The small aviation-guided ship could easily catch up with the civilian airships by relying on the driving force of the molecular power furnace, but due to the weather, it did not form an encirclement in the air. Has the situation improved for Her Royal Highness and them? In addition to constantly adjusting the airship's path like a prey being chased by a vulture, Charlotte could only learn about the status of everyone in the cabin from Anja. Her Royal Highness the Third Princess and others are still breathing. My medical knowledge is not enough to judge the condition, Your Excellency Izian. Call me Charlotte, don't use such rigid names anymore. Charlotte raised the corner of her mouth mockingly. From the moment I left Her Royal Highness the Fourth Princess, I was no longer a noble but an accomplice. That's rude, Miss Charlotte. If we can't get rid of them, will they shoot us down? At least the other side hasn't shown any impatience yet, but if they go a long way away from the border, I don't know what they will do. Based on Charlotte's understanding of the radical faction in the Senate, they would never leave any evidence that they had personally dealt with Lan Ming. Even if they did, it would be out of sight of the people. Ever since the incident involving a civilian airship that visited the Tiburai Kingdom in winter, the radical faction of the Senate has always behaved this way. Then the ending has been decided, and G, who was standing behind Charlotte, spoke without changing her expression, without any euphemism, but Her Royal Highness Princess Ziming believes in you, so I will believe in you, Miss Charlotte. After saying that, Anja turned around and walked back into the cabin. The cockpit door closed with a click behind Charlotte, who didn't look back. Charlotte didn't want to admit it and refute her, but in the end she just frowned and didn't say anything. In this airship that requires a complete crew to maintain, there are only 2 conscious people and only 1 person who can pilot it. This is an almost desperate situation. The sensor in the cockpit sounded the alarm of approaching heat source again, and Charlotte quickly adjusted the parameters on the console. The space in the cabin immediately tilted sharply to the left, and a trail of flames trailed past the right wing of the civilian airship and penetrated into the thick clouds. The next second, a thunderous fire flashed in the gray clouds not far away, and then rolled up from the explosion in the opposite direction to the forward direction. In the oncoming storm, the airship swayed like leaves drifting in the sea. I don't know much about the weapons on the aviation magic ship. With no driving experience at all, Charlotte only relied on the theories and intuition taught in the Imperial Knight Academy to drive the airship. Thanks to the maid of Her Royal Highness the Fourth Princess taking care of everyone in the cabin, Charlotte was able to concentrate on escaping under the pursuit of the Imperial Air Magic Fleet. Judging from the time, it is estimated that not even a quarter of the distance has been completed. Is it really like she said, you can only wait for a certain moment to be shot down? If the plane crashes unfortunately, you may be able to find a way out by using the escape device and start a new escape journey on the ground. But it's too early for Charlotte to start thinking about this kind of thing. After passing through the storm zone, the distance between the Imperial Air Magic Fleet and the airship has narrowed a lot. If that arrogant man was still awake, he would definitely shout, "I will never accept this ending." Then Lan Ming will support his recklessness, and the man will confidently save the day. Charlotte never thought about losing to him. She had already made up her mind that she would never be surpassed by him as a knight. Several heat source reactions were added at the same time. Even if it was not hit directly, the airflow storm generated by the explosion would tear apart the civilian airship. A plan suddenly popped into Charlotte's mind. The moment this plan came to her mind, she immediately wondered if it was because she had been thinking about that arrogant man that she had such an unrealistic idea. Ah, never mind. If you hesitate any longer, not to mention comparing yourself with that arrogant man, you will lose even your beloved princess. Charlotte decisively turned off the automatic control of the airship and switched it to manual. When the heat source approached the rear of the airship, Charlotte suddenly pulled up the control stick. Multiple flames passed by the glass window of the cockpit. Charlotte ignored them all and just blindly pulled the joystick to the highest position while releasing the engine output limit. The storm rolled in as expected, but this time no headwind warning sounded. Charlotte completely turned the entire airship to the opposite direction, and this time the storm turned into a propulsion force in the downwind direction. Civilian airships cannot change up and down directions. If the fuselage is turned sideways at a horizontal distance, the exposed area will be increased, and the chance of being shot will also be greatly increased. Then just climb up and turn at the same time, which more or less reduces the above risks, but if an accident occurs, the machine will still be destroyed. Charlotte imitated that arrogant man and acted recklessly on a purely theoretical basis. At the same time that the forward direction was completely reversed and the storm swept in, Charlotte immediately shut down the overloaded engine, and the shadow of the Imperial Air Magic Fleet in his field of vision quickly enlarged. The other party seemed to have completely not expected that Charlotte would adopt the foolish approach of heading on, and did not react at all to the civilian airship that swayed through the gap of the Imperial Air Magic Fleet. With the help of the storm, the distance between the civilian airship and the aviation magic ship quickly widened after shrinking to zero. Is there any other way to go? During this time, Charlotte mobilized all the cells in her brain to find new escape routes. The approach just now can undoubtedly only alleviate the urgent need, but the fundamental problem remains unresolved. At least go to a place where you can get supplies first. But on this vast ocean, only the locator is the only road sign, and no one knows where other countries and races are. As for the location of Shimizuki Academy, I just relied on the locator to head west, so there was no alternative route. The Imperial Air Magic Fleet also regrouped and continued to pursue the fleeing civilian airships. If this continues, everyone will return to the BZ Empire where they finally escaped. At this time, an unnatural gap suddenly appeared in the rear pursuit queue displayed on the console. Oni-sama is so powerful. 2 ships fell down. A little girl wearing a blue and white striped swimsuit cheered for joy on the deck, and her 2 bunny ears stood up high and swayed back and forth in excitement. There were many girls in swimsuits like her around the deck. They were not as noisy as this little girl, but their eyes were full of admiration. In front of their sight, in the center of the deck, was the figure of a woman with long pale blonde hair tied around her waist and wearing a cool military uniform. Her legs were spread forward and back to support her body on the swaying deck, and her pale golden hair was fluttering in the sea breeze. And what she controlled with both hands was a behemoth no less than half the size of a ship. The magic weapon, Sky-Splitting Gun, is a handheld shipborne gun with a range of 10,000 meters, and is also the most powerful weapon of the Hiwa fleet. Now, the cannon barrel pointing diagonally upward silently pulled away from the breech, spraying out excess magic steam. After taking back her arms, the woman grabbed the little girl as she ran past her and held her head down hard. How many times have you told me not to run around on the deck, and have you forgotten all of them? Sister, you are so handsome. You killed 2 enemies with 1 shot. Even though she was tortured by tiger claws, the little girl was still excited. The way he was waving his hands on the spot made the girls around him burst into laughter. In the end, the woman could only sigh helplessly and let the suppressed little girl run away. If possible, I really don't want you to participate in the war at this age, Ruby. Please continue to maintain the Mist Realm. Okay, Captain. The girl in a navy blue one-piece swimsuit shook her hair hanging down from her cheeks and grasped the staff in her hands that was taller than herself. The little girl who escaped from Philly, the captain of the Sea Mist Fleet, somehow got behind the frightened Ruby. Then she grabbed a pair of big breasts hidden by a blue one-piece swimsuit from behind. Ah! Ruby, this is not okay, you have to call me Oni-sama. The little girl's 10 fingers sank deeply into the rich, soft fruit. Idiot Zio, don't play with my breasts. The panic-stricken Ruby closed her teary eyes tightly, grabbed the claws playing with her breasts, and threw the little girl away with a cry. Ziu, who was thrown hard to the deck, used her last strength to give a thumbs up to Ruby, who was looking down at her angrily. It's obviously just a big breast. What does this have to do with breast size? Ruby, who punished the breast attacker, had no sense of success at all. Instead, she could only hug her breasts with tears in her eyes. After holding the breasts with both arms, the ripeness of the 2 fruits is highlighted. Stop making trouble, Zio, hurry up and notify other ships to prepare for air bombardment. The enemy will immediately target us and kill them all when the altitude decreases. As you command, Oni-sama. Ziyu, who was lying on her back on the deck while dying just now, immediately sat up and ran to the bridge in bounds. The other girls who were watching also dispersed and began to inspect the ship's magic shipborne guns. Fei Li watched with trepidation as Ziyu disappeared behind the bridge door, and then walked towards Ruby, who had not yet settled down. "I'm sorry, Ziyu has caused you trouble again. It doesn't matter, as long as you don't always care so much about my breasts. That child is so energetic that even I can't control her. Actually, I also hope that she can always be so energetic. By the way, did it affect the Mist Realm just now? It won't be affected to that extent, and the Mist Realm should be able to hold on until the end of the trip." When talking about her magic costume, Ruby finally showed a rare confidence. Feli smiled softly, and at this time, the anti-aircraft artillery fire started behind her. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 334. When a friendly force was shot down by an attack of unknown origin, the Imperial Air Magic Fleet immediately determined the source of the attack through shooting trajectories. But when the sea area at the attack point was searched, the detection device found nothing. The sea surface was empty except for heavy sea fog. Just as the command ship was plunged into chaos, their confusion was completely destroyed by the saturation bombardment fired from the thick fog. After losing 2/3 of its combat power in an instant, the aviation magic ship turned to fire randomly into the fog. Even the magic power that had been used for defense in order to guard against mechanical alchemy was all converted into magic bombardment. The thick magic light beam shot into the thick fog without any reverberation. It didn't even stir up the sea water. It just disappeared silently and invisibly. The next moment, like a retaliation, the second round of magic artillery blasts pierced the sky, completely wiping out the last remaining force of the Imperial Air Magic Fleet, which was ordered to pursue the absconding civilian airship. Charlotte witnessed the destruction of the Imperial Air Magic Fleet in the cockpit. She couldn't understand at all who the person who destroyed the Empire's most powerful force was in the blink of an eye, and this was not the time to focus on this issue. This civilian airship consumed a lot of energy while avoiding the storm caused by the airburst bombs. Now that the obstacles on the original path have been cleared, it is the safest way to go straight to Shimizuki Academy along the original path. Although we don't know whether the force that destroyed the Imperial Air Magic Fleet is an enemy or a friend, there is no better option at the moment. After the civilian airship slowed down and stabilized, Anja came to the cockpit again. "Miss Charlotte turns out to be reckless sometimes. I'd rather you call it a strategy. Then I will understand that this is your strategy." Regardless of whether it was a joke or not, the point of laughter was lost when she said it in Anja's calm tone. Charlotte switched to automatic driving again and got out of the driver's seat. "Does Miss Charlotte know the source of the rescue just now?" "I don't know. Do you have any clue?" Facing Charlotte's question, Anja just shook her head. Charlotte stopped discussing this issue. If Anja didn't know about it, there would be no third person to ask. "Miss Anja, can you sit here for a while for me? I want to see Her Royal Highness." "It doesn't matter, but I don't know what to do." "Ah, it's on autopilot now. If anything happens, just call me over the cabin radio and I'll be here right away." After Anja nodded gently, Charlotte, who couldn't hold back her eagerness, immediately strode into the cabin. The air and sea war ended between Philly and Ruby's conversation. In an era when magic technology was prevalent and aviation magic ships were the overlords of war, the Sea Mist Fleet won a complete victory. "If you hadn't taken the initiative to join us, I really don't know how those tasks would have been completed. I just want to use your power to get my sister back, because I have this idea, these are what I should do." Ruby lowered her head with a smile, and the vine wand she held behind her back rang a clear bell. Her magical equipment illusion of fog can completely fog the space within a certain range, which is also the origin of the name of the sea fog fleet. Ruby, it's been almost 2 years since you've been here, right? Hey, that's it? Aren't you used to life here yet? No, this time, Ruby showed a comfortable smile. I think this place is just like home, and everyone is a family. Then why do you keep calling me Captain? Not sure whether it was intentional or not, Feli suddenly asked this unserious question. Ruby probably hadn't noticed yet, but there was a playful smile on Feli's lips. That's because. Ruby looked away awkwardly. That kind of name is a bit unacceptable, and you have only one sister, right? But the captain is also someone I value very much, and I don't compare myself with my sister. I know, I know. After all, you have left your country for 2 years for your sister. Feli took satisfaction from Ruby's reaction and touched her head tenderly. At this time, a voice that didn't care about the atmosphere intervened between the two of them. Sister, Karel is back. Ruby was immersed in Feli's touch on her head, and was so frightened by Zio's shouting that her whole body trembled, and she quickly took a step back and left Feli. Feli could only let go of Ruby with a slight regret, and turned to look in the direction of the bridge. Next to the bouncing Zio was Karel, who had gone to Augustus of the Bes Empire a few hours ago to perform a mission. Karel had already changed out of the tights she wore when she sneaked into the castle in the room she was teleported back to, and returned to her daily attire. Even on the ship where other girls were wearing crisp swimsuits, Karel still wore a slightly childish newsboy cap and a light red scarf. Under the brown dress, her body was in the prime of development. Carol, thank you for your hard work. We just finished here. There was a ball of pure white fluff on Karel's hat. That was the hairy jade she picked up at Chiyu Academy. Although the textbook records that the size of the adult Mao is huge, it is unknown whether it was affected by Luoluo's healing magic and the size of this Mao did not continue to increase. So, Karel naturally kept it as a pet on the boat. In that case, the mission is over, right? Thank you for your hard work, Oni-sama. Although Karel forced a smile, she could not conceal her fatigue. Sneaking into August all night, there are many variables involved in the battle, and she, who is still just a student, will naturally not be able to bear it. The last part of the mission is left. We have to escort them to Frost Moon Academy. Karel, please go back to your room and rest first, and then leave everything to us. Sister, I have a question that I can't figure out. You tell me. With Feli's permission, Karel revealed the confusion she felt during the infiltration mission. I'm thinking, why did Oni-sama risk exposure to help them? Although Senior Ika, Senior Luoluo and Senior Ling are all very important seniors to me, but for our what's the meaning? Karel wants to rescue the seniors, this is her sincerity. Senior Ika helped himself up after falling during the Moonflower Festival, and distributed leaflets together. Without seniors Luoluo and Ling, his own Mao would never have survived. Therefore, these seniors are really important to Karel. But for her own selfish desires, she severely hurt senior sister Luoluo and senior sister Ling. This was her helpless act and the self-blame she could never forgive. Perhaps this kind of assistance can be regarded as his own atonement, but Karel also wants to know the real reason beyond wishful thinking. It was not difficult for Feli to see the contradiction in Karel's heart at this time. Why? She put her hands on her hips and looked up at the gradually clearing sky. There is no special reason. It's just that I once cooperated with the third princess of the BZ Empire. Until the end, Karel didn't know whether Feli's words were true or perfunctory. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 335. After getting rid of the pursuers from the Bis Empire, the escapees did not encounter new obstacles. Charlotte and Anja took turns monitoring the route and caring for the wounded. The extremely weak Lan Ming only regained a glimmer of consciousness during the journey, and then fell asleep again. Ika and Wei 11's injuries were not serious, but they were still breathing. Ling suffered a penetrating injury to his leg, although Anja's bandaging had stopped the bleeding, but his low fever still persisted. At this time, it would be great if Miss Luoluo could be here. Xia Luo had previously helped Lan Ming investigate the information of several people at Chuanjiao Academy and knew that Luo was studying in the pharmacy department because of his talent for healing magic. The pain that Lan Ming and Ling were suffering could be quickly relieved by the presence of a potion magician. The conditions of Ika and Wei 11 are completely unclear, because their injuries on the surface are milder than those of Lan Ming and Ling, but there is no sign of regaining consciousness. Does Miss Lolo have any connection with the Nemesis Society? At least there is no connection at all in the information I have investigated before. The Nemesis Society has attacked them many times. Anja said nothing. If Charlotte hadn't been so sure, she would have been prepared to express her inference. She had suspected that Lolo was colluding with the Nemesis Society, but there should be no omissions in the information investigated by the Asian family. Anja didn't understand Ika's situation. If it hadn't been for being nearly hit by their car in the middle of the night, the two sides would never have crossed paths. As for why Luoluo left everyone at the end, this is not a problem that Charlotte and Anja can explain. In the early morning of the second day of the escape, the civilian airship, which had almost run out of power, docked at the neutral airport. The docking application immediately passed the control tower in the neutral area. It seems that Shimizuki Academy has made arrangements for the escapees in advance. I am Phyllis, the principal of Frost Moon Academy. Thank you for bringing our students back. Behind the tall woman with long silver hair blowing in the evening breeze, there were several special motorcycles parked behind her, welcoming the escapees from the Bes Empire at the airport. Neither Charlotte nor Anja expected that the first relevant person they met after arriving in the neutral area was the leader of the entire neutral area Enshiyu Academy. When the chestnut-colored short-haired woman wearing round-rimmed glasses stepped out of the motorcycle, Charlotte recognized this imperial nobleman whom she had not seen for a long time. "Excuse me, are you Terakaru? Now I am just an instructor at Frost Moon Academy. You are the third princess's personal knight, right? We met when we were children." The open book was suspended in the hands of teacher Tara, and the windlass and automatic pages shone with the light of magic. It was the coat of arms of the Kalu family that allowed Charlotte to recognize the identity of tutor Tara. Terakaru left the Bizi Empire a few years ago with the Kalyalu family's magical costume Omniscience, and it was only a year later that it was discovered that she had become the mentor of Frost Moon Academy. Because of the absolute neutrality and inviolability of Frost Moon Academy, the founder of all knowledge was finally separated from the control of the Bis Empire, and the reputation of the Kalu family of the Fu family plummeted. You will be here. Does that mean that all our actions are under the control of Shimizuki Academy? We don't know anything about the situation before you arrived in the neutral area. The omniscient knowledge can only predict the future of this area within 24 hours. The book glowing with magical power closed automatically and fell into the hands of teacher Tara. Now that they have safely entered the protection range of Frost Moon Academy, there is no need to continue to monitor the future. The ability of the Omniscience has no offensive power, but its threatening nature was ranked among the top in the Bizi Empire's magic equipment files. It seems that the preparations for the pharmacy department have been completed. All the wounded have been left to us to manage. Do you two have any objections? Of course, Charlotte and Anja would not refuse, and there was no room for refusal. Before the sky was dark, the 4 injured people on the airship had been sent to the emergency room of the affiliated hospital by special vehicles. Charlotte and Anja only received the necessary treatment, and then were asked by Principal Phyllis about the incident. Really? I didn't expect Luoluo to choose which side. When she learned that Lolo was in the Nemesis Society, Principal Phyllis was not as surprised as she said. Principal Phyllis, if our actions have brought trouble to this area, I can only apologize to you on behalf of Her Royal Highness. Just leave the apology to those students who ran out without even saying hello. Moreover, letting Princess Lanming move in is only Shimotsuki Academy's responsibility. What's your job? Charlotte didn't understand why Frost Moon Academy had taken in the fleeing royal family of the Bis Empire. They should have upheld an absolutely neutral stance and made a fair and just trial. Principal Phyllis smiled as if she had planned it. Because Lan Mingyila has been a student of Shimoyu Academy a long time ago, just like those little guys. Your Highness Princess, is a student. Just wait here. I still have some work to arrange. Principal Felice turned around and left Charlotte, who had not yet figured out the cause and effect. Just listen to the arrangements of the pharmacy department here. Teacher Tara did not enter the courtyard with Principal Phyllis. She stayed in the driver's seat of the principal's car. After Principal Phyllis returned, she started the engine. The thick book wrapped in a cross-shaped chain is the outer form of the Book of Omniscient, and it is currently leaning quietly on the side of the driver's seat. Tara, there's something important you didn't tell them just now, right? What do you mean? The Nemesis Society has sneaked into our place and had contact with the little girl from the Kin's family. Didn't you see them all? The more they know, the more confused they will be. It turns out that the more absurd the approach is, the greater the possibility of achieving the goal. Are you judging the mischief of those little guys this time? However, the results are indeed good. You also acquiesced to their actions. You had expected this result, right? Ika and the others used the aviation magic ship that was receiving supplies to sneak across, but they were unable to escape the eyes of the Omniscient One. When Teacher Tara told Principal Phyllis this information, she just said, even if I stop their actions, I can't stop them from thinking, and tacitly allowed Ika and the others to mess around. I really never thought that they could bring Princess Lanming back. The best outcome I expected was that they could come back intact. But classmate Luoluo didn't come back. Isn't it beyond your expectation? The Nemesis Association. Principal Phyllis said the name in a deep voice. What exactly do you want the little girl from the Chiz family to do? What you don't know about, it's even less likely for me to know about it. As long as that strange organization doesn't enter a neutral area, I can't predict their actions. The only person that Tara's omniscient power cannot monitor is Principal Phyllis. She is almost omniscient but cannot see through the woman next to her who has experienced a cross-border war. However, Tutor Tara doesn't care much about this kind of problem, she just needs to complete her duties. Is the little girl from the Kin's family very similar to your sister? Teacher Tara did not react to Principal Phyllis's words. She just looked straight and turned the steering wheel. It seems I shouldn't mention this matter now. I thought you had figured it out during the 2 years you were at Shimizuki Academy. It was not difficult for Principal Phyllis to see her answer hidden in silence, so she could only end the question with an insignificant joke. I don't know if it was because of the 2 years that could be said to be a long time or a short time, but Teacher Tara slowed down the speed of the car. The iconic clock tower of Shimizuki Academy can already be seen in the distance. Now that things have happened, there is nothing to avoid. Instructor Tara put her hands on the steering wheel and leaned against the driver's seat. Her tone was full of nostalgia as if she was remembering the past. The round-framed glasses reflected the light of the rising sun, making her expression look blurry at this moment. It's just, I hope Luoluo won't be like Lalicia. When Tarakaru left the BZ Empire, she had not yet inherited the family's magical equipment, the founder of Omniscience, and completed the contract after entering Frost Moon Academy. The reason for leaving the BZ Empire was simply to eliminate the heavy burden that the magic costume brought to his parents in various senses. Judging from the results, the Kalu family retained the material and financial resources of the Fu family, but lost only the political voice that their parents were originally pessimistic about. The second daughter of the family, Lalicia Karu, would protest against this and join the Nemesis Society, which was an outcome that Teacher Tara did not want to see. Tutor Tara, who also broke away from the family, was not qualified to criticize her sister's choice, and the gap between the two became wider and wider, and they eventually faced off tit for tat over the fight for the Twin Towers of Bis. This was my first thought after I learned that Lugo had joined the association. As their mentor, I really failed in my duty. Then compared with your selfishness, I may need to resign from the title of Principal of Frost Moon Academy to have a clear conscience. Principal Phyllis knew about her relationship with the Nemesis Society, but Teacher Tara was not completely kept in the dark. Otherwise, in the absolutely inviolable and neutral area of the mainland, how could they have such unimpeded access as if they were entering uninhabited territory? The two people who controlled the actual power in the neutral area and monitored the situation in the neutral area just laughed at each other's teasing, and neither of them pursued it further. Actually, I also want to know what Ika-san would do. The vision of the little guys is too narrow after all. They will only try their best to help their companions, but they will do nothing else. That's enough. Ika-san just needs to bring Luo-Luo-san back. Because I don't know how to save Lilicia, I want to know what he will do. His only advantage is that he can influence all the people around him. The little guys will definitely dig out the Nemesis Society if they dig deep enough. They probably won't be able to hide it. Nemesis is the name of the legendary goddess of revenge, right? But the purpose of that group of people must not only be revenge. There's no need to think too complicated. That association is just a heresy gathered by similar people with different wishes. That group of people can't even hug each other to keep warm. It's like a hedgehog. Teacher Tara found a suitable metaphor for Principal Phyllis's comments about the Nemesis Society. The Great Barrier of Frost Moon Academy was open to the two of them, and was closed again after the motorcycle passed through the luxurious gate.